Gordon was a lot of things in life. He was a husband, he was a father, he was a brother and a son. He was a police officer, a friend, a musician, a cyclist. He was full of kindness and joy. He was willing to listen and to serve.
That special Gordon laugh. And it was always accompanied by that giant smile. It was part giggle, part belly laugh. Who would have thought of two grown men carrying guns would be talking about changing diapers as much as we did?
If everyone was just a little more like Gordon, what a wonderful world this would be.
Toby, Teus, you will hear your dad described in a lot of ways. You'll hear that he was a great cop, he was a gentleman, that he was a hero. Those are all true. But most importantly, your dad was quite simply one of the finest human beings I ever met.
At funerals, we remember the best in people. For the loved ones of Arvada police officer Gordon Beesley, there is a lot to remember.
Officer Beesley was as sincere as he was silly. He took his job seriously, but not himself. He loved his family, and he loved being a police officer.
Just doesn't seem fair, does it? To only be introduced to such a wonderful person because you're saying goodbye. Denver7's Gary Brode leads our coverage.
A fitting tribute for a man who gave his life for his community.
Your dad was a hero.
Family, friends, and law enforcement from around the state sharing stories of fallen Arvada officer Gordon Beesley, a man known for his kindness and compassion.
I don't think any of us can remember a time when Gordon wasn't willing to stop and help. After 5 minutes with Gordon, you couldn't help but walk away feeling better. He knew how to cheer anybody up.
Many offering words of encouragement and gratitude to the officer's family as well.
Thank you for sharing him with us. We all know that there are no words that can adequately or fully express your loss. I know Gordon led a life of personal sacrifice for others, but so did you because you supported him.
Beesley spent 19 years on the force, most of it as a school resource officer, as he was known in Arvada for the positive impact he had on the students he served.
And I find myself questioning, why does God always pick the good ones? But I could find no better answer than, when you pick flowers, which ones do you pick?
As a musician turned police officer, Beesley played with many local bands over the years. One of his groups playing one more time for their fallen friend. Before a ceremonious farewell and thank you for all that he did.
Officer Beesley, you are clear for end of watch.
In Lafayette, Gary Brode, Denver7.
And it took more than 20 minutes for Officer Beesley's procession to go by our cameras today. That shows how well loved he is. Denver7's Ivan Rodriguez spoke with some of the people paying their respects.
Look at all the lights, girls.
What coordinate you have?
Yeah, there are a few more coming.
For families with young children, explaining why hundreds of law enforcement vehicles gathered for a procession Tuesday morning.
They're waving at you, girls.
Is a difficult but meaningful conversation.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think coming here with them being so little, it's hard to explain it, but we're just here to show respect and come out here and show support for all law enforcement. And that's kind of the message we give to the kids.
And for any family that has a loved one in law enforcement, honoring the life of Officer Gordon Beesley hits close to home, even if they never met him personally.
Every day they face dangers and the possibility of not making it home to their family.
It's heart-wrenching, it's heartbreaking. There's a plethora of emotions. There's anger, there's sadness. It just runs the gamut of emotions, especially when you're a police family.
As law enforcement agencies from across the state paid their final respects, the people standing alongside the stretch of Highway 7 wanted his family to know they're not alone.
We want to show support for the officer, the fallen officer, but also to the officers that are still working.
There's much more people out here that support officers than don't.
Support that for many will always be directed to law enforcement, especially for officers like Beesley, whose death has left a hole not easily filled. Ivan Rodriguez, Denver7.
And watching today, you really got the feeling that the people who knew Officer Beesley could have told stories about him for hours.
And he also seemed like a pretty good storyteller himself. Here's his friend Sergeant Brian Tommy recounting a trip Beesley took to the beach.
Gordon told me he was on the beach when Tom Brady and his wife Giselle rode by on ATVs enjoying beach life. Gordon said that he was checking out the situation. He determined that supermodel wife wasn't all that super without all the makeup. And Tom was definitely the hotter one of the couple. Tom had the flowing locks at the time, and he really enjoyed that.
And you can find our previous stories on Officer Beesley and Johnny Hurley right now on the denverchannel.com. And we've also included information on how to donate to their families.
A Thornton man is in police custody for shooting and killing a woman and then dumping her body in a storage unit. 21-year-old Lavanya Jane was found dead on May 20th. The suspect, Gregory Thomas, was later tracked to Washington State, where he was arrested. A Denver man has agreed to a plea deal and could spend 8 years in prison for defrauding investors. Prosecutors say Tyler Tisdall schemed athletes and others out of millions of dollars. Their names are redacted in the affidavit, but the Denver Post says victims include former NFL quarterbacks Carson Palmer and Matt Castle. Tisdall also convinced people his wine company was worth much more than it actually was. 3 investors ended up losing their combined $500,000 stake in that case. It's on Tisdall now to make them whole and pay another $18 million in restitution. He will be sentenced in January.
The hit and run was bad. The aftermath has been worse for a Denver Uber driver. Our Patrick Perez spoke with him today.
This is what's left of Bashir Almabrook's van and livelihood.
I have a big family, six kids, my wife.
Bashir says he was in the Sloan's Lake area going home 2 weeks ago when a driver ran a stop sign.
My car is gone, and this is the only resource for now in the summer for me to make any income.
Bashir teaches at MSU during the spring and works as an Uber driver in the summer to make some extra cash. But without a working car, that's no longer an option.
It's gonna cost between $2,000 to $3,000, I don't know, maybe more. It's total loss. For sure, it's not drivable anymore.
Bashir says the driver and passengers took off before police could arrive, but not before he got pictures of the car and plates. The hit-and-run driver has no insurance, Bashir's learned, and worse, his insurance doesn't cover crashes like these.
For some reason, I don't have coverage for uninsured vehicle, uninsured motors, it's called.
It's mandatory that your insurance professional offers it to you, but it is an optional coverage for what we call UM/UIM or underinsurance coverage.
Carol Walker is the executive director of the Rocky Mountain Insurance Association. She says about 16% of Colorado drivers are uninsured. And if you don't have the right coverage, you'll end up footing the bill for the damage they cause.
Could I pay to fix my car, replace my car, pay for medical bills? Those are all something that you'll have to pay for out of pocket if you go without uninsured motorist coverage.
Now Bashir wants to warn others so they don't end up in the same situation, victimized and without the proper coverage.
There's a lot of uninsured vehicles in the street, a lot.
Patrick Perez, Denver7.
And this is where you come in. To help Bashir, head to the Denver7 Give section of the denverchannel.com. Select this story from the drop-down menu.
As of Thursday, masks are no longer required at CU Boulder. They are still recommended indoors for people who have not been vaccinated. Students have until September 15th to either get vaccinated or provide a reason why they could not.
The Colorado Supreme Court has ruled that mandatory lifetime sex offender registration for children is cruel and unusual punishment. The court also says offenders must have the opportunity to show they've been rehabilitated. The vote was 6-1. Chief Justice Brian Boatwright dissented.
More than 47 million people are expected to travel our country's roads and skies this 4th of July holiday weekend. Nearly 770,000 Coloradans are among them. 9 out of 10 will drive.
Coming up, Red Rocks provides another example of why you shouldn't believe everything you see online.
It's one guy who managed to stir up thousands of people by spreading misinformation.
Plus, this contractor's reputation precedes him, and we don't mean that in a good way.
He's been doing this for years to people.
Some flash flood watches continue up into the mountains. It looks like more showers and storms are on the way.